I'd like to start off with something kind of funny, so listen to this one. A minister dies and is waiting in line at the pearly gates. Ahead of him is a man dressed in a loud shirt, jeans, and sunglasses. And Peter asks, "Who are you?" The man replies, "Joe Cohan, taxi driver, New York City." Peter checks his list and hands him a silk robe and a golden staff and says, "Enter into heaven." The minister steps forward and says, "I'm Michael Bender, pastor of St. Mary's." Peter checks his list and hands him a cotton robe and a wooden staff. The minister says, "Wait a minute. The taxi driver gets a silk robe and a golden staff. How can this be?" To which Peter replied, "Up here, we work by results. When you preached, people slept. When he drove, people prayed." So I'm making a mental note of that, and hopefully I don't put anyone to sleep during this message.
Amen.
Yeah. So I want to talk with you today about the importance of waiting on God's timing. Without question, one of the hardest things for many Christians to do with the Lord is to wait on God's timing to make certain things happen in their lives. In this very fast-paced world, there are things that are set up for maximum speed and efficiency. We're so used to everything moving at breakneck speed that we then have a very hard time adjusting to the slower ways that God will work things out in our lives. God loves us and desires to meet the needs of our lives. He promises to answer our prayers, but not according to our timing or method. Waiting on the Lord is a vital principle for every Christian. God, above all, knows when the timing is right for his perfect plan to go into action. After all, he knows our lives from beginning to end, so he knows exactly where we are at this moment. God has placed dreams and desires in our heart. We often feel that we know what God's plan is for us. But the mistake we make many times is we get in a hurry, and because we don't see anything happening, we decide we're going to help God out. So we start trying to make something happen in our own strength and in our own timing. The Bible calls this the works of the flesh. That's when we're trying to make something happen that only God can make happen. The story of Jacob is a good example of working in the flesh. Jacob was happy to know God was with him, and God gave Jacob a dream. He experienced a vision of a ladder, a staircase reaching into heaven, with angels going up and down it. And he heard the voice of God coming from the top of the ladder, who repeated many blessings upon Jacob. God put this big dream in his heart, but Jacob didn't wait on God's timing. He cheated his brother Esau out of his birthright, and then he tricked his dad into giving him the blessing of the firstborn son that should have belonged to his brother Esau as well. He tried to promote himself instead of waiting on God to promote him. If you started in the flesh, you're going to have to maintain it in the flesh. Jacob ended up having to live on the run. He knew he did Esau wrong, and he had to flee for his life. He finally ended up at his Uncle Laban's house, who had a beautiful daughter by the name of Rachel. Jacob fell in love with her and wanted to marry her. And Laban said, "All right, Jacob, you can marry my daughter if you work for me for 7 years. Jacob agreed and worked faithfully for those 7 years. When it came time for the wedding, Laban called all the people together for a great big feast. And back in those days, the bride would wear this very thick, veil so that you could hardly tell who it was. On the night of the wedding, Laban got Jacob very drunk. And instead of giving him his daughter Rachel, he put his older daughter in the wedding dress. And when Jacob woke up the next morning and realized that he was next to the wrong woman, he was furious. He went to Laban and said, "How could you do this to me? You tricked me. Here I worked faithfully all these years and you cheated me." But really, Jacob was reaping exactly what he had sowed. He had cheated his brother, and now he was being cheated. Laban said, "All right, Jacob, I'll let you marry Rachel. Just work for me another 7 years." On and on, one struggle after another. When we work in the flesh and make it happen in our own strength, it will not turn out as God had planned. Some of you today are working on the plan God put in your heart, but you're constantly struggling with it. You may be trying to change your husband or your wife or a relationship with friends. You may be trying to get your business to grow or get a better job. You must get ahead. The problem with that is that you're trying to do something that only God can do. In other words, quit struggling. Quit worrying about it and trust in God. Trust God to bring it about in His time and in His way. Understand this: God doesn't work when we're frustrated. God works when we believe. He works when we trust Him. As long as you have your hands on it, trying to change this person, trying to force this door open, trying to control every situation, God's going to back off. When you finally decide that you're tired of doing it your own way and you turn it over to God, that's when He's going to step in and begin to work. In the book of Psalms, chapter 37, the Lord tells us not to fret because He is watching over us. If we're willing to obediently walk with Him according to His timing, He will provide everything we need. Even if we haven't been following God's plan for our lives, He's willing to pick us up right where we are, forgive us for all our wasted time, and give us a fresh start. Learn to trust God. Behind the scenes, He is getting everything ready. You may not think anything is happening, but God is doing the work in you. You're growing. You're maturing. He's working in other people. He's getting all those pieces perfectly lined up. In due season, at the perfect time, if you will trust in Him, God will bring it all to pass. The whole key is to stay in God's perfect timing. Don't get in a hurry and try to force things to happen. When you do that, you'll be dealing with it before it's ready. When you get out of God's timing, you'll be laboring in vain. Friends, life is too short to be laboring in vain. Listen to the Spirit and follow your heart. Don't make decisions to go forward when you feel that unrest and uneasiness on the inside. Just take a step back, put it on hold, and wait for God's best. I know people think if they pass up an opportunity like that they will never get another chance, or that they may be missing out on something great. But it's just the opposite. When you have that unrest down in here, no matter how great the opportunity looks, that means that God has something better in store for you. And if you make the mistake of going against your heart and just do it anyways, that is just going to delay God's best plan. That's going to end up putting everything off. When you're tempted to force your own way, no matter how bad you want it, you need to make yourself take a step back and wait on God. Learn to trust His timing. The wisest thing we can do is to start every day by connecting with Almighty God. Although we are already united with the Father through Jesus Christ, we still need to communicate with him daily in order to develop an intimate relationship. Instead of only coming to him in times of emergency or need, we should begin each morning asking him to help us walk wisely, not lagging behind or getting ahead of his plan. If we don't seek the Lord's guidance each day, we'll end up automatically following our own course. As a result, we'll be confused and dissatisfied because we've missed what God intended to give us or do through us. One area of our walk with the Lord where we have to learn to have more patience is in the area of divine healing. There are times when God will move to heal immediately and instantaneously. And these types of miracles are always very dramatic when they occur. But more often, God will choose to heal someone more slowly over a certain period of time. And if he chooses this route with any of us, we have to have the patience to stay the course, along with keeping our faith and trust fully intact with him, so we do not lose the healing with him. Many people have walked out on their healings with the Lord before they have actually occurred, all due to impatience and frustration of not getting the healing fast enough. Another area in our walk with the Lord where we have to learn to have more patience is in the area of prayer. Sometimes we will get our prayers answered very quickly with the Lord. Other times we will not. And when God does not answer some of our prayers as fast as we think he should, we once more tend to get very impatient. Again, this is another major area where we have to completely rely on God's perfect timing as to when he will want to answer some of your prayers. God can see perfectly in the future. We cannot. As such, God will always know best as to when to answer your prayers. There will be many other miscellaneous matters that will occur in your life where you again will have to wait on God's perfect timing to get something done or to solve the problem you may be dealing with. But God's wisdom and timing will always be perfect in every single situation that you will ever face in this life. So learn to rely on it. It will help keep you safe, along with keeping you on his divine path for your life and making your life that much more productive in him. I believe that learning how to be patient with the Lord and learning how to wait for his perfect timing to make certain things happen into your life is one of the most frustrating things in our walk with him. You may ask, how do I know if it is really God's will? How do I know if this is the right person, if this person is the right one for me, or it's the right time to step out in faith to do a project? Always follow the peace that God gives, that God puts in your heart. I would encourage you to take it one small step at a time. Take the first step and see if it feels good. If you still have peace, then take the next step. God will always lead you if you will just stay open and be sensitive to what he is saying. Don't get caught up in the excitement of the moment. Don't let your emotion take over and talk you into it. It's very easy to convince ourselves that it is God when we are all fired up and when we're all excited and we want it really bad. But we have to learn to put those emotions aside. Get past that excitement and follow your heart. and see what God is really saying. If you don't feel really good about it, don't ignore this warning. Your flesh will try to get its own way, and it will try and get you to make it happen before God is ready to bring this event into your life. Be wise and listen to what God is saying to you. You have to learn how to override it with self-control. Friends, this can save us so much disappointment. This can save us so much heartache and pain. We've got to stay in God's perfect timing and not try to force things to happen. If you listen to your flesh and try to make it happen before God is ready to release this event into your life, you could seriously jeopardize this event from ever coming your way from the Lord. And if God is totally perfect and we are not, then God knows best not only what he will bring into our lives, but he knows best when to bring those certain things into our lives. That's why when God tries to work the quality of patience into us by making us wait for certain things, it can be a bit painful and stressful at times. And as we are not used to doing it in the type of fast-paced world in which we live. But God will not let this world, the things in it, or the way it wants to run itself, mess with his divine plan for our lives. God's ways and timing are absolutely perfect. So the sooner you can understand this, the sooner you can get with his program for your life and learn how to have patience for the things that he wants to bring into your life. Amen.